who I'm very fond of and I've spoken with a lot and written about a fair bit as well. It's, of course, the fantastic Breakthrough Party, and I'm very pleased to be joined today by the founder, Alex Mays, who's on my laptop down here, if you can't see where he is. So if you're wondering why I'm going to be looking down here, I'm speaking to him. Alex, thank you so much for joining me. This took us ages to sort out. We were supposed to do this at the start of the year, and then kind of you were busy, then I was busy, then dates clashed, and it's taken us like 6 weeks.
Yeah, it's taken a while, isn't it? Like, I'm sorry again as well about like how long it's taken, because it's been like, yeah, it's just been non-stop. Like, it wasn't, 2021 was pretty crazy with everything that's been going on with Breakthrough. It's just been even crazier the last 6 weeks. But no, thank you so much for having me on. I really, appreciate your support as well.
No, thank you for coming on. I love what you're doing. It's great to finally properly speak to you. We've spoken a lot, obviously, electronically, as it were, but we're now face to face. So what I want to do is take it back to the start, so viewers can get an overview of Breakthrough, and then we've got an awful lot to get through in terms of what's actually been going on, because there have been numerous changes to how the party operates, and you've got people in sitting in positions of political power now, but we'll get to that later. So back to the beginning. Why did you do this? Because it's no mean feat deciding to start a political party. What was the inspiration, motivation?
I guess, like, I'll be honest with you, quite a lot of negative feelings at first. I was angry, I was frustrated, I was disillusioned. And the thing was as well, that didn't just stretch to the Tories, like I was just the whole political system in general. The fact that our choices really, bar that brief period between 2015 and 2019, was red Tories or blue Tories. Like millions of people, I got into politics because of Corbyn. I'm not, I think a lot of people did. I wasn't political when I was in my teens or early 20s. It all sort of started for me in 2015. It was the first time I was actually quite excited and engaged in politics. And I guess as well, like seeing that light at the end of the tunnel for the country in general after, pretty awful 3-4 decades. And then 2019 happened, and it just devastated me completely. There was genuine grief there about what could have been. So after the 2019 general election, I stayed in Labour, tried to get more active within it. But I saw quite quickly, with Starmer at the helm, that it was veering well away from what I believed in. A few examples like abstaining on the Overseas Operations Bill, Spy Cops Bill, calling like BLM a moment and failing to call out that white supremacist caller on LBC. Like ditching the 10 pledges that he got elected on, and his obsession as well with attacking socialists rather than the Tories. I think it was a death by 1,000 cuts for me. And that sort of led to me resigning my Labour membership in summer of 2020. But even though I left Labour, I still knew I wanted to be politically active. So I started looking around for a new political home. And I was really surprised actually when I was looking around about how little choice there was out there, like anything that was properly established and seemed like it was making moves and, had a lot going for it. So there seemed to be this huge vacuum on the left. And I wanted to channel my negative pent up energy on something positive. So I sort of saw that, the young, the vulnerable and the marginalised have been totally chucked under the bus by both Tories and Labour now. And there are millions of people out there who probably feel politically homeless as well. So I thought to myself at that point, why not try and start something? And like, let's be completely straight here. Like, it's actually crazy. Like, who in their right mind would start a political party? Because but the thing is, like, how I am is like, as soon as I have an idea in my head, I'm like a dog with a bone. I just can't let go of it at all. So I just, started writing down a few ideas, started up a WhatsApp group with a few friends at first and sort of told them about the ideas I had. And then they sort of thought it had legs. They started talking to friends of friends. And then before we know it, had complete strangers join in, and it just completely snowballed from there. And it's just it officially launched in January last year. So 13 months later on now, and it's just gone absolutely crazy, like in a really, really good way.
It has, isn't it? Because I mean, you've got, and I might have lost track here, so correct me if I'm wrong. You've got 3 councillors and the mayor.
So we got 4 councillors and a mayor.
I knew it.
So Owen is a councillor and a mayor, and then we've got 3 councillors. Oh no, even I'm losing count now. Yeah, we got 4 councillors, and Owen is a mayor and a councillor. So technically 5 councillors, 1 mayor.
Did you expect this? Because you haven't even. There's been no real contesting of any elections either yet. Were you expecting to literally be up to 4 councillors and the mayor who's also a councillor? So 5 elected representatives in your first year already. And this is on the basis, by the way, if people at home don't know this is on the basis of the fact these people defected because they were so unhappy in the parties they were in, and they saw breakthrough and saw what you were doing and were immediately attracted to it. I mean, has this taken you by surprise?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, in a way it has, because I don't think there's many parties in the 2 recent, but and recently I guess, that have made this kind of impact so quickly when it comes to having elected councillors. They have defected, so they haven't been elected off the back of a breakthrough manifesto, but they've defected to us for a reason. I think what it shows is that the political landscape right now is so turbulent, and anything can happen, which I think gives us a lot of hope for future elections. I think it's also proved us right in terms of there being this massive space on the left that needed filling. I think there are a lot of socialist councillors in the Labour Party who are quite pissed off with where it's gone. And before now, they perhaps didn't have that clear choice of what party to go to. When I tell people that we've already had defections, it kind of blows their mind. Like, how is a party that has existed for just over a year convincing people that their party has more of a future than a party that's been around for over a century and has been in government? So I think for me, it's like a real testament to everyone in Breakthrough who's dedicated so much time and energy up to this point to build what we have so far.
It is quite staggering, really, I suppose, because you know what it's like. You used to be a journalist, and I'm allegedly a journalist, and you get kind of caught up in the news, and you don't get a chance to really sit and contemplate and mull over things a lot of the time. But actually, when you said that you've only been going 13 months and already you've got 5 people in elected positions, there are so many small parties who don't achieve that in the whole course of their lifetime. I mean, it's quite, and I would hope it bodes well for the local elections this year. And speaking of the local elections this year, you've now got lots of pals, haven't you, to do a kind of tabloid pun, Alex? You've got pals. Yeah. Tell me about pals, because this is kind of sprung up from nowhere, really, and I think it's something a lot of people have been wanting for a bloody long time. But so what's going on with pals?
So it's sorry to correct you at this stage, but it's pal rather than pals.
Oh, it's pal.
But basically, people keep saying, "Oh, be my pal," or "We can be pals," and using it like that. But like, it's basically the People's Alliance to the left. It was originally the Progressive Alliance to the left, but we changed that very quickly because of the connotations with the so-called Progressive Alliance of Lib Dems, Greens and Labour. But yeah, so essentially how that sort of all started off is that ever since the get-go, really, ever since I started the party, but been really keen to collaborate with other like-minded people and organisations on the left. And, we've seen in the past, time and time again, that when the left doesn't cooperate, it falls flat on its face and it just doesn't win power. So I started talking to Thelma Walker, who's former Labour MP for Colne Valley. I think it was around this time last year, actually. And she was really keen about the idea of building a broader socialist movement. And I really wanted Breakthrough to be a part of that. The idea ultimately was to bring together like-minded radical socialists and progressive social movements to help us work collectively towards a socialist government. And so far, the official groups involved are ourselves, Left Unity, Northern Independence Party, and Trade Unionist and Socialist Coalition, TUSC. And its purpose ultimately is to network and sort of foster this collaboration and joint working, discussion, policy development between other left organisations. There have been plenty of other groups involved in discussions, but they've not fully signed up yet. Hoping to have them officially on board soon, but I can't say much more about what groups are involved at this stage. But separately from PAL as well, and not as a function of PAL, we have the 4 parties that are involved are going to seek to sort of cooperate over standing in elections as well. So the idea is it would aim to basically to avoid standing against each other and offer mutual support to each other's candidates as well. So this sort of electoral cooperation does not imply that electoral support from other organisations in PAL are supporting them, but the parties will. So we've already done this in Birmingham Erdington. We stood down our candidate to allow Dave Nellist from Tusk to have a free run as the only socialist on the ballot paper. And we're currently in conversations with the other parties involved to ensure that we don't stand against each other in the local elections in May as well. So that's kind of where we're at with it so far. But hoping it continues building. It's something that I'm really excited about, and the party's really excited about as well. So yeah, it's looking good so far.
Excellent. I'm going to throw you a curveball question, with two curveball questions actually, because I'm quite interested.
Go for it.
So what about the Green Party? Any conversations with them?
No conversations with the Green Party at the moment. I think there would be, if I'm totally honest with you, I think there would still be reservations about the transphobia that's been in the party. I know that's been, I might be wrong. Well, no, I think they have started dealing with that more recently, but I think there's still some reservations. So I think that might be a tougher sell on that. And I think some people might actually not consider, and some people as well don't consider them to be fully left either. So I think, yeah, I'm not too sure about the Greens, to be honest.
That's perfect. My stepfather calls the Greens Tories on push bikes. So there we go.
Yeah, I think, to be fair, I think one of our, back in the early days, I think someone on our social media said, I think on our social media, on our official account, said like they're liberals on bicycles, and I was like, probably not the best thing to like piss off the Green Party so early.
But it's true. We all know this. This is why Sean Berry's great. I know Sean Berry, I've known her for years, and she's brilliant. And her stepping down as co-leader said it all, really.
Yeah.
For me. The other curveball I want to throw you is a lot of you watching at home may have seen the, how can I put it? I don't want to say the Twitter, I suppose, interjection by George Galloway of the Workers' Party regarding Dave from Tusk. Dave I've known for many years, and I've known George for many years as well. I worked with George for a couple of years. George not happy that Tusk was standing in Birmingham and Dave Nellist was standing. I believe Workers' Party have backed down though, haven't they? Is that right?
Yes, they have. So Workers' Party aren't involved in PAL either for a few reasons. But I know that obviously we'd had discussions with Tusk about standing, and then it came to our attention that Workers' Party had been as well, but we weren't aware of that at the time when we were in these discussions. I think I'm right in saying as well, I think it has been resolved now, because I think Workers' Party members have been campaigning for Dave down in Erdington, and we're hoping to do the same. But yeah, Workers' Party aren't a part of PAL. But no, I know they've had a disagreement with Tusk. I don't know how that's I think that's ongoing between the two parties. But yeah, I think they made the right decision in standing down for sure.
The point with both my curveball questions was, I suppose, to show that your agreements between Tusk, Left Unity, Breakthrough and NIP, they kind of really need to be watertight, because what the challenge I think is going to be that when it comes to local elections, if you've still got Green Party standing, who we know aren't progressive, however, does everyone know they're not progressive is questionable, and you've also got George Galloway's Workers' Party standing, as he showed in Batley and Spen, with quite some weight, even though he didn't come where he wanted to. Still knocked up third, didn't he, in Batley and Spen? So this PAL agreement has got to be watertight for my money to make this work, because with those two variables in the mix, it still could be a challenge.
I totally agree with you. Yeah, like that's the thing. We've been in conversations with all these groups probably since June last year, and we've been having quite regular meetings. And I'm in contact with anyone involved in those groups pretty regular, like more regularly than the meetings we have. And yeah, it's so important. Like, I see so much in it, and I think it can go probably further than what we have currently. I think there's a lot of different avenues we can go down in terms of how we work together. And yeah, it needs to be watertight. And so far, so good, really. Like, obviously, like none, you know, none, when we do end up having, you know, conflicts where, like, well, I say conflicts, you know, if both of us want to stand in one seat, one party will be disappointed. Of course they will be, you know. I hold my hands up, like Birmingham Urgington, we really did want to stand in, but we knew that we couldn't both stand. It just wasn't, you know, what's the point in putting this alliance together and then going totally against it first thing? We knew we had to do the, you know, we did the right thing in the end and stood down. And now our West Midlands group are going to help Dave on the campaign, and we're going to try and do a bit more public stuff as well on our Twitter and stuff to support Dave as well, because like that's what it's about. And like hopefully when the next by-election comes along and we might be standing in it, we'd hope to get the same back from Tufts. So it's just, yeah, it's all about how can we only all get out of it as much as we put in. So like that's what it needs to be. There needs to be that sort of level of like understanding that we all need to put in to get out. And hopefully over these next few weeks and months we'll see that. And I think the local elections is another, as you say, a really good opportunity to see what we can do there.
I think it is, and I think it's a really good opportunity to test the waters, because I think if you're very strategic about it in terms of, okay, well, let's look at, I'm not telling grandma to suck eggs here, it's just kind of what's going through my head at the minute. If you look very strategically at it in terms of the demographics of the ward, what the kind of previous turnouts were, what parties they lean towards, socio-economic status of the people in the wards, it could work, this kind of alliance work extremely well if you targeted based on who was in that specific area. A lot of work to be able to do that, but I think if it was very strategically and analytically done, I think it could really work. And I think it's been needed for a very long time. As I say, the curveballs are the Greens and Workers' Party, obviously. But
yeah, of course. I think what you're saying though is really interesting there, because I think you're absolutely right. Like all four parties, you know, we come together and working, you know, collectively as part of PAL. We all have our differences. We all have our different focuses. And as you say, like I think different demographics, different areas will work better for different parties. So there is a real opportunity to, you know, as you say, it'll take hard work to get there. But I think there is, it'll be, if we work hard to do, like, I think we could easily find a way to say, well, these seats are clearly much more likely that Breakthrough will do well here, or Northern Independence Party will do well here, Tusk will do well here, Left Unity will do well here. We all have our different niches. And what we wanted to do with this as well is that everyone's got, you know, when we announced PAL and said, like, look, like, we're not going to just be this one group that you become a member of and you're a member of PAL. It's like, no, like, we're all still four separate entities with all different different ideas and different identities. And, you know, some people might be more like, oh yeah, Breakthrough is my bag, but then some people might be like Northern Independence Party is, or Tusk or Left Unity. And we all respect that. And we just want to put ourselves out there and say, like, look, we're all working together collaboratively. And if you like what one of us is about, great, join us. If you're not too keen on the other ones, that's also fine.
No, I think it's excellent. You need a good data analyst. You need a radical Dominic Cummings. Is what you need. So hopefully, I think it should work really well, and the local elections are going to be fascinating. I just want to move on, because the other, as every good interviewer does, I drafted questions beforehand and sent them across to you. And when I was thinking through kind of what I wanted to talk about and what I was interested in asking your opinion on, the other thing was the notion of appealing to the sort of the poorest people in society, because I bang on about this a lot because it's a real bugbear of mine. There was this idea that working class people voted for Corbyn in the droves in 2017, 2019. And actually, when you check the data, that's not borne out in terms of breaking it down to social grade, which I think is a very important measurement. I prefer looking at things in terms of social grade A to E, as opposed to class anymore. I find class quite outdated. But anyway, when you look at it in terms of social grade, actually, in both 2017 and 2019, the proportion of DE, that is the poorest two social grades, who actually turned out and voted was the lowest on record. It got down to 52.7%, I believe, 53% for argument's sake, in both 2017 and 2019. So the point being that even Corbyn, with his platform and with the mass mobilisation of members which he had, which Starmer no longer has, even with that, he still did not break through into the poorest communities. Fact, the data shows it. What is different with Breakthrough? How are you going to square this circle of bringing policies which are progressive and which are undoubtedly in the interests of the poorest communities in this country, while turnout of them voting has never been so low, and they've never been more disenfranchised by the system from politics effectively. Because it's not people aren't interested, there's this misconception of poor people are stupid, blah, blah, blah. It's not the case. The system disenfranchises these people. How is Breakthrough and PAL, I suppose more broadly, going to square that circle and rectify this situation?
Well, yeah, you're absolutely right. I think ultimately the poorest people in our society are disillusioned and apathetic about mainstream politics, and you can't really blame them when you look at what's happened over the years. Like, the system has consistently failed to offer them anything meaningful, really. And, you know, it's ground people down to a point really now where they think their vote doesn't make a difference. So I think that's the key thing here. And I think this is the establishment's plan, right? They want people to feel powerless, so they can continue destroying the lives of the many for the benefit of the few. So I think not only do we need to offer, you know, the poorest people in society something to get excited about at election time, but also empower them now. I think that's really, really important. The way I see that happening is it has to come through long-term organising in partnership with other like-minded grassroots organisations. I think that's key, and community engagement as well. I know that did happen a bit during, you know, I think it did happen a fair bit during the Corbyn era, but I think a lot more work needs to be done there. We can't expect people to just sort of take us at our word that we'll make things better for them. You know, we've seen so many lies told in, not only by Boris Johnson and the Tories, but Keir Starmer himself. You know, like you know, I said before, but we saw how quickly those 10 pledges were binned, and like how quickly he threw socialists under the bus. So I think what we need to do, we need to win trust through actions. You know, we've established our regional branches now, and the hard work starts now in terms of, you know, we don't just see ourselves as a Westminster-centric party, but like a party that makes, you know, and takes a truly expansive view of politics, and believes in building up a presence in communities, you know, workplaces and on the streets. So I think that's the beginning of how we do it. I think it's not going to be something we can just change overnight. There has to be so much work put into these communities. We need to embed ourselves in these communities and actually build trust and engagement, because, you know, I think so many people have been taken for granted before by political parties, and it's just such a shame, because like I think we generally could get a much better voter turnout than we currently do. I just don't think, from what I've seen personally from other political parties before, I've just not seen the level of engagement that's needed. And I feel like they almost write areas like that off. They just go, do you know what? It's not even worth canvassing there. It's not really worth door knocking there. And they'll just target the areas where they know they'll get votes. And I just don't think that, you know, when you think of all the non-voters, right, as well, like I didn't think this before, but like the non-voter category, I think I might be wrong here, but the non-voter category is massive compared
it's always the largest party. It's always
the winner, right? So like I think there's so much work to be done there, and I always find it baffling that no political parties ever focus on that. They're just like, they're happy with the, you know, if it's Labour and Tories, they're happy with that 30-40% that they know, you know, 30-40%, not even of the population, just 30-40% of the people that have registered to vote, which is another thing, you know. So like when you actually think of the you know, how many people are actually voting for them, it's actually not a massive amount of the population. So like if you can actually get people who don't normally vote excited about something, and you can show them, you know, tangible differences as well. You know, when I was talking about like the community work before, saying we actually, you know, we don't have to be empowered to make these changes, right? Like you can do stuff in your community, mutual aid or whatever else. You can do this stuff without getting elected. And that's why, you know, we've established our regional branches last month. We're starting to, you know, grow them now. And we're sort of trying to plan activities in certain areas around the country. And that's where the work is. That's what we need to start doing now. And like, it's going to be a lot of work, but like, it's about, you know, I started this party to make a difference. I didn't start this party just to win elections. It's not what I'm about. It's not what Breakthrough's about. And I think all the members are fully on board with that vision and what we want to do. So yeah, I think that's where it has to come. It has to come from working in communities, the engagement, and yeah, winning trust through actions, I think, rather than words.
I think it's crucial you've identified non-voters there. I think because you're absolutely correct, not even Corbyn's tenure as Labour leader addressed the issue of non-voters, and you can see that none of the other parties care. And yeah, it's always 33%, a third of the electorate do not vote, and that's always more, even with the Tories landslide, I believe, in 2019. It's even more than they got in votes. So it's crucial you address that, and I'm glad you did bring up that point, because no one else wants to really talk about it. But it could be the key to changing things. I mean, you've got a whole electorate on its own there who have been so disenfranchised by politics. But if actually they did all vote and the majority voted for the same party, it could sweep a new party to power. So I think it's crucial you've mentioned that. So excellent. However, of course, we still have more challenges, as we always do. You're watching this at home, viewers, because you probably are not fans of the corporate media too much. And obviously we know what the corporate media did to Corbyn, which didn't help at all. Of course, the same hostility, Alex, may well be present for Breakthrough. I know that watching what's been going on, you've been picking up some local coverage. I've seen that local news seems to be more open to Breakthrough. However, if you look at the picture as a whole, the corporate media, given how progressive you are and given the policies you're coming with, and it's not even, what I like about Breakthrough is you dress it up a bit differently to how sort of the Corbyn left was dressing things up. It's quite, especially your social media accounts, they're very to the point. It's not kind of long drawn out sentences, and it's not kind of complex philosophy and difficult. You're just to the point. You say, this is shit, we're not having this, it needs to be like this. Lovely, brilliant. But with that comes, as I said, the problems you may experience with the corporate press, which if you do have some success, they're going to soon start picking up on you because they have agendas themselves to fulfill. I mean, what are your thoughts on that? What needs to happen within corporate media, or do we need to abandon corporate media altogether? I mean, what would need to happen for you to change that situation where the corporate press is consistently hostile to anything that's kind of to the left of, I don't know, John McDonnell, really, even, you know, what needs to change, or can it not change at all? Is it too far gone, the corporate media?
I think it's good. I think it's going to be tough, isn't it? Like, there's no doubt it is going to be, like, it's not going to be easy at all. Like, you know, when you think that 75% of our news media is controlled by 4 rich old white men, like, who really ultimately want our society and our planet to stay exactly as it is. You know, when you even think of like the BBC, Ofcom, you know, these are supposed to be impartial, but they're not. They're controlled by, you know, they're controlled by the Tories. So I think we've kind of accepted, and especially in this first year of existence, like, we've kind of accepted that we aren't going to get a fair ride, like, regardless of how much we sweet talk corporate media or how professional we get, as it were. You know, if they cover us from time to time, great. Like, you know, I'm not going to say don't cover us, but, you know, we have our red lines on who we do want to cover us. But I think we've got no illusions. Like, the long-term strategy must be to build an alternative media ecosystem. I think that is part and parcel. Like, I think as well, we as customers have to boycott. You know, we need to shift our support as well to independent, local and regional journalism, which, you know, we've already, as you mentioned before, we've actually had like a lot more coverage locally when we've had councillors defecting, or, you know, when we stood in the by-election in Cheshire and Amersham, we got really good coverage there. And I think as well, just refuse to engage with, you know, the conversation on their terms. You know, when they ultimately want to keep us down, that is pretty much like their goal. You know, and I think the media has such an important role to play, because if we want to build, you know, free, fair, informed societies, you know, we need to collectively fight back against the corporate media, because at the moment, it's just like parties like ourselves, like, we're never going to get a word in, really, and really would struggle. And that's, you know, I'm going to talk about it a bit later, but like, our plan this year really is to get ourselves out there, like, actually, like, make so much noise that they have to listen. I think that's like the big thing for us. You know, when we look at like climate movements like XR and Green New Deal Rising, they do stuff that they do stunts and they do things that will get attention. And I think that's what we need to do as a political party as well. So yeah, I think that's what we need to do. But with the corporate media itself, I think it's going to take a hell of a lot of reform to even get it close to what it needs to be. I'm always in the position of just rip it up and start again with quite a lot of things. But yeah, it needs a hell of a lot of work, and we're under no illusion that we're gonna struggle to get that coverage. So we need to be loud and in your face, and basically like protests that Priti Patel wants to ban. Like we need to be like that, really.
Exactly so. I mean, what role does social media, do you think, have to play in this? Because it was fascinating when you sort of look at the Corbyn movement from 2015 up to the election of 2019. I mean, and still to this day, really, I mean, the left dominates platforms like Twitter, undeniably, maybe less so than it used to, but especially during the Corbyn era, there was analysis after analysis done that the left dominated the narratives on Twitter. But then you have the flip side of that is a platform like Facebook, which is constantly restricting more and more and more and more and more left-wing websites, left-wing news sites, left-wing conversations. I wrote about the other day how Facebook in the US still, after this happened in 2018, still has not adjusted its algorithms to remove the systemic bias that exists for right-wing platforms. That's still in place, that it promotes right-wing news and websites over left-wing news sites. So you still have that in place. You then have TikTok, which is still a slight unknown quantity in terms of politics. I mean, did you see that story about the TikTok Tory MP?
Oh yeah, and she's got like barely any followers.
Barely any followers. Zara Sultana's got like a quarter.
Zara Sultana absolutely smashes TikTok. Like if we want them eventually, like, because with our Twitter, like our Twitter has been our main platform, like no doubt about it. I really want us to get on TikTok, like do more stuff on TikTok. Like, but even at 31, I feel too old for TikTok. You know what I mean? Like I feel like, I work in social media, and TikTok still absolutely is, as you say, an unknown quantity.
Look, right, I'm 40, and the other day I set up my own Discord server. So there we go. Come on, you can do TikTok. You're only 31. You've got 9 years on me. But do you think there is still a big role for social media in politics, or has again that ship sailed? And do we actually need to go back to knocking on doors and embedding ourselves in communities, or is social media still important?
I think social media is absolutely still important. Like, I know ultimately, we wouldn't be where we are now without it, like as a party, because when we started in January 2021, we were in our third national lockdown. Like we literally couldn't go out there and knock on doors and start campaigning. We had to start making noise on social media. I think both have a role to play, if I'm honest. I think social media and the community engagement, presence, campaign, and everything else, I think they work together really lovely. Like, I think there's some more old school organizations that still haven't fully understood the benefits of social media. And I think, like, you're seeing like the more mainstream parties now are getting better, even though I think Labour's social media has been pretty dreadful for a while now. But I think mainstream parties are realizing the power of social media. And, I work in it. I worked in it for like the last 7 years, and I think there's so much power in it. I think, don't get me wrong, like, I think there has to be a balance. Like, we've been accused, and NIP's been accused before, of being just Twitter parties or social media parties and what have you. But like, and I'll talk about it a bit later, but like, we appreciate that, like, yeah, a lot of our activism has been online, but we have done a hell of a lot more in person since the restrictions have been eased. And we've been at protests and demos. We're at the cost of living demos on Saturday across the country. And we're doing a lot more of that. And now the regional branches are, started. We're going to be doing a lot more community organising, campaigning and stuff. So, but yeah, I think there's a balance. Like, we know we wouldn't be where we are now without social media as a party. So we're not just going to all of a sudden go, do you know what? We'll lay back on that. It's like, no, it's like, it gets your message out to so many people so quickly. And like, like we just, even like the other day, like when we did like an announcement about, when Neil Coyle got suspended, got the whip taken away, we basically just went, well, like, if we don't stand, someone from Powell will stand. So we'll do an announcement and say, like, we're going to stand against Neil Coyle, whether it's us or someone in Powell. And it went crazy, went absolutely crazy. Like, a few hundred few hundred followers, and like, it isn't about that, but like we could literally just put a message out there, and it's like immediately just get this amazing traction, and people know, people maybe hadn't heard of you before suddenly do know who you are. And we're getting that all the time when we're outreaching to people. They're just like, oh, I only heard about you the other day. I saw a tweet that went viral or something. Now I know about you, and I looked you up on your website, and I really like the ideas. And then from there on in, like within a few days, they remember. Like that's, we don't have that power on the streets yet. We will one day. I mean, when we're in communities and stuff, I'm sure we will. But right now, social media is just massive for us.
No, and I do agree with you. It needs to be a combination of community organising coupled with social media, and the two could work very well together. Because if you walk onto any council estate across this country, and most people on the estate know each other, they all know each other. And I've always thought if a party could get one organiser on each estate to network, and because everyone knows each other's business, but that's another story entirely. And I've always believed that, and I think it's a trick that parties are mixing the community organising in terms of making sure there's people in every community, and then they utilise their social media, whether it be WhatsApp, whether it be TikTok, whether it be Discord, whatever, to connect the community together around that party. I think it's a real trick that's been missed historically.
I agree with you completely. Like the great thing is as well, I was saying about like the outreach before, and like we're getting people that have heard of it. It's also like we have people to go, oh, I overheard a few people talk about you in the pub the other day, or like my friend mentioned it to me, and I'm like, we've been going for 13 months, and we've got, the fact we're getting that already, it kind of like, even like when we go to protests, oh yeah, I've heard a breakthrough, and it's like, how's, it's everywhere. Like, it's actually, and it does, don't get me wrong, like it does surprise me still, because it's like, barely been about, and like people know about us. It's so, it's really lovely. So we are getting both. We're not just getting it, oh, like I saw a tweet that you did, but I'm getting like, oh yeah, I heard my mate told me about you, or like, yes, and overheard people in the pub talking about you. It's great.
Good, excellent. And you mentioned the independent media ecosystem within that, which obviously the Canary is a part of. That's why we're talking to you now. There's a lot of conversations going on behind the scenes in independent media at the minute. Actually, there's a lot of work we're doing as the Canary, but also collectively with organisations like the Independent Media Association, working out how we can best build on this ecosystem post-Corbyn, because that era is done, it's dusted, in my opinion. We have to move on from that and look to how we mould the future. And there are a lot of conversations going on at the minute between outlets and internally in outlets as well. I'm interested, as a fledgling political party, and as we both alluded to, a party that the corporate media probably ain't gonna like. What can independent media do, and what more can it do than it's done already to support smaller parties like yourselves? Because these are conversations we're having at the minute. Okay, what are we here for? Why are we here? So how can independent media support Breakthrough more than it maybe is already?
Well, like I think it's pretty, like, as I said before, like you've written about us a few times, and we've spoken a lot, and like you've given me this platform today. Like for me, ultimately, it's about independent media can help parties like Breakthrough by giving them lots of sympathetic coverage like this. I think it's that's so important for us. As I said before, like we're not going to get the attention of the corporate media, or even like slightly more left-wing outlets, without doing stuff that makes a noise, even though I think like the stuff we are doing behind the scenes, and even like getting councillors on board, is still quite big for a new party. I remember, I think it was before the North Shropshire by-election, Lawrence Fox's party got one councillor to defect from the Tories, and the Independent covered it, and I was like, what are you, like, you guys, allegedly like a party that is not, a news outlet that's not right wing or centrist or whatever, and you're giving Lawrence Fox a platform, but then you would never even dream of touching us and going like, oh, like this new party have had 5 councillors defect. You know what I mean? It's just, again, like that just says it all for me.
So sorry to interrupt you, but it's hive mentality almost, and it's
completely.
very, very corporate media, because I can tell you, I bet the thinking behind that was that click, 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 click. Yeah. People will click on that article to see the Lawrence Fox, blah, 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 etc., etc., etc. It's the corporate media all over. They know they're driven by advertising revenue, and click is what that was. No moral backbone.
Not at all. Well, that's it, isn't it? Like, they're basically, like, corporate media are essentially saying, like, someone like me who leads the political party has to be an absolute dick. Like, that's why I have to be this controversial, horrible figure and say some really horrible shit, and then they might give me some coverage, which is just absolutely crazy. Like, just isn't how it should work. And like, when you look at some of the stuff that Lawrence Fox comes out with, like, absolute nonsense the guy comes out with. Just like, why? Like, why give him? Like, they're just, again, you're right. It's all about clicks. It's all about, you know, they're not thinking about the damage this is doing by giving this guy coverage, because there are people out there that are going to be, you know, perhaps sympathetic to what he's saying and might be like convinced by what he's saying about taking away our freedoms and everything else. But, you know, like, that's the thing. Like, for me, like, it's not about, and I've always said this since the get-go at Breakthrough, it's not about me. It's about the movement. It's about the members. It's about everyone else. It's about everyone. It's us as a collective, not about a single figure. And I think that's the thing with politics now. It's all become about its personality, right? It's all about it's this one person, this leader who is, you know, outspoken or like does something crazy, and then everyone jumps on it, and, you know, and it's just, that's all politics is at the moment. And it needs to go beyond that. Like, it needs to be about the ideas. It needs to be about the vision. Like, God, like, I know I don't want to go too much into Labour, because, you know, we could talk about Labour all night and where they go wrong, but like, you know what I mean? Like, they have no vision. Like, they have no vision. And like, but we're like, you know, but Keir Starmer, you know, called out Boris Johnson in PMQs. It's like, who cares? Like, what difference is that making? You know what I mean? Like, I want to hear what policies they've got. I want to hear what difference they're going to make to people's lives, because I'm not seeing it. And it's the same with a lot of these parties. They're just thinking about the next headline that they're going to get in the newspaper, rather than the actual difference they're going to make to people's lives. So yeah, it's frustrating. But going back to the independent media question, like, you know, I think it's a two-way street as well. Like, we want to help independent media as well. Like, we need each other. You know, we do need each other. And I think, you know, when I spoke before about a broad coalition of like parties, movements, campaign groups, whatever else, I think independent media needs to be thrown in there as well. Like, you know, if we have, you know, we're planning to have like a party conference in June, like, I would love for the Canary to come along and cover that, for example, or whatever else. Like, I would love for us to have that support, but then also there to be that sort of, that working relationship between media organization, left media, you know, independent media organizations and parties like ours. I think there's a real potential, like, a lot of collaboration we can do there, and we can help each other. And I think that's been missing for a long time on the left. And I think we're starting to finally see things connecting together. And it fills me with like so much hope as well, because, like, God, I can't tell you like how I think, like, just how I felt like everything had gone. I think after 2019, I thought, like, that's it. No hope in hell of ever anything changing ever again. This is my life now. This is my kids' lives, my future kids' lives, future grandkids' lives. It's over. But like, the last year has definitely given me that hope that there is something better. And I've seen that with the way that, you know, that we're all working together towards the same thing. And I think, yeah, I'm a lot more, I feel a lot more better now at the start of 22 than I did at the start of 2021 about the future and what we can do together.
Good, I'm pleased to hear. And on that note, what does 2022 hopefully hold for Breakthrough to wrap things up? What are you hoping for? What's the dream?
So yeah, I think, because obviously the last 12 months were like a real learning curve for us. Like, you know, we're in, as I said before, like, we're in the midst of a third national lockdown when we started. So we really had to utilize social media, as I said, you know, and I think that's what grabbed the attention for us. But I think 2022 is going to be the year that we convert that online success to physical success as well. So I think to do that, we need to be bigger. Like, we need to grab attention, and we need to be ready to fight elections. I think they're the three key things. You know, I think despite the limitations we've had, we've managed to build really steadily. Like, really happy with, like, you know, like, January was our biggest month in terms of new members, and February's on course to beat that, even though it's a shorter month, which is great. But I want to see that accelerate. You know, with more members, we can do so much more as a party, you know, more volunteers, more campaigners, more activists, and they can sort of really help take us to the next level. And in terms of like grabbing attention, you know, I talked about it earlier with XR and Green New Deal Rising. It's going to be really tough. Like, it is going to be really tough. You know, our media systematically ignores radical ideas really and wants to maintain the status quo. So, you know, they really won't give us a platform without a fight. So, you know, we need to break into the mainstream at all. We need to commit to taking big, bold actions that grab attention. So, you know, our radical manifesto that we're releasing next month, for example, we're hoping will be the catalyst and the starting point for that. But we also know we need to start and support nationwide campaigns like we did with cost of living demos, create powerful viral content, which we're working on. We're sort of building a breakthrough ambassadors program at the moment, which is really exciting, where we'll have members sort of like doing pieces to camera and stuff and acting more like spokespeople for the party. You know, we're building relationships, you know, want to build those relationships with sympathetic and supportive journalists and media organizations who can champion our cause as well. And ultimately, it needs to be about changing the narrative around socialism and presenting it as the only viable option to the destruction of our society and our planet. Like that's what we need to do. And then finally, as I said, like getting election ready. So, you know, I mentioned before that regional branches are up and running. And the focus for us is now to start building a presence in communities up and down the country and to start actually making a tangible difference to people's lives. Like that's what we got into this for. So that's how I see 2022. And I think just want to sort of end really, like it always sounds really cliche when I say this, but I basically just want this to be the year that we break through. And I think, you know, with the plans that we have and, you know, the people we have, I think we'll do that.
It's not cliched at all, and I hope 2022 will be. It's been fascinating and exciting watching Breakthrough grow from those early days, because you know, I've been in communication with you guys a lot, and I do think that, as you've repeatedly alluded to, a combination of the community coupled with the social media, coupled with some kind of big, bold kind of actions, hopefully will make that happen. And I think PAL is a very also positive step forward. And I would love to see you at your conference, of course, Alex. Yes.
We'll have, like, we'd love to have you there. We'll get you 100%. We'll sort that out.
Look, it's been really lovely to speak to you finally. As we said, we've been chatting for ages, but to actually physically speak to you has been really, really lovely. And the Canary will definitely, obviously, be following what Breakthrough does, and we will do our best to support you in any way we can. But for the minute, Alex Mays, thank you so much for speaking to me.
Thanks so much, Steve. Cheers. Take care.